Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So during the pandemic, I moved to Wallace, Idaho for a couple months, and then I was here in Phoenix for 4 months, and then I moved back home to Seattle. Obviously, everything was a lot slower at the time. I was working at a startup university and also as a private tutor, and I noticed a little bit of a phenomenon. I would get some amount of work that might only be 2 hours. There might be some other event that's going on that's another 1 hour there, and so on. But it made it impossible to schedule anything else because the whole time of the day the clock was ticking, tick tock, tick tock. You gotta do remote work. It was during COVID. You gotta do remote work at 6 o'clock, but it's not like you can freely be anywhere at 4 o'clock, right? You got to think about traffic, whether or not Wi-Fi is going to be available where you decide to hang out, or if you're going to be out there, you got to worry if the place you're thinking about using Wi-Fi is suddenly going to shut down because somebody caught COVID. Right? That was not an uncommon experience 2-3 years ago, and so it felt like the clock ticked 24 hours. Oh, and my favorite drink. I can freely enjoy this now because it's Easter Sunday and there was nobody who was going to come on yesterday. And you get off work, oh, I can't have my favorite caffeine because I got to worry about tomorrow. And so even though you might work only 3, 4, 5 hours and only get paid 3 or 4 or 5 hours during that day, your clock seemed to have ticked 24 hours a day, right? And so that was not an uncommon experience, by the way. Even to this day, the other thing I like to do is obviously my Bismuth art. Let's see if we can get something on camera here. Here's another Ganesh. I haven't had a chance to anodize it. Uh, but the problem with the Bismuth art is that there's a lot of setup that goes on and it takes up half the kitchen. So I got to check with my roommates. And then I find a time slot where that's going to be okay with my roommates. And again, the clock will tick in the hours before and after the Bismuth point, right? Afterwards, you're kind of in a weird state where you probably can't directly fall asleep, right? Certainly, you can't cut it so tight that afterwards you have to race somewhere, right? And you get the idea. And I have a little bit of a hack around this. I'll let you pause the video to think about one way to cut out the clock fever out of your life. Okay, here it is. When you have any sort of appointment with somebody, unless it's with the president of the United States or somebody really high profile, treat the time like it's a suggestion, right? This person would like to meet you at 3 o'clock, right? Ideally at 3, right? If it's a little early, if it's a little late, we can always work something out, right? There's no nuclear button to be pressed, right? You know something that's really funny when you do it that way? Very seldom will you actually miss the time. Our bodies are kind of wired up to not miss the time, but you'll actually go there much more recharged than if you thought about that time for 2, 3, 4 hours before the event. Anyways, so just a little bit of a hack. I used to call it hurry mania, but then I was talking to a colleague and she said she had clock fever, and I actually like that a lot better because it's really a fever that you're giving yourself, right?